Hey, so I'm going to make an estimate that this is going to be one of my longer videos talking to the camera, because I have a lot to say. Just a quick warning, if you're here for usual, complete, lighthearted background noise stuff, probably not. I'm gonna be getting into a bit of heavy stuff here, and as much as this is definitely framed like an unimportant, I'm putting this out because I can't make my real content yet videos, this is going to have a lot of very important stuff in it, that my viewers should know, I guess, all two of you. So, we're gonna start this right off by kind of retconning something that I said in my last video, which is that the new thing that I was working on, that I keep saying I'm working on, I promise it's going to be my best work, is to do with Infinity Bit, or is a part of Infinity Bit. And that's not to say that wasn't true. That was very much true. And that project has, at the very least, been postponed for a very, very long time, and I'm going to explain why. I'm still going to be making something in a very similar manner, but it's not. It's going to be a new thing. After working on this for like the better part of 6 months, I'm just starting a new thing with a blank slate again. So, first off, I'm going to kind of get into why. Just why. And I have a good reason, I promise. Infinity Bit, I'm sure all of you are well aware by now of what it is, but it's basically this really dumb, really bad series that I have on my channel where I desperately attempt to be comedic. And it is 5 hours worth of content. It had 3 seasons, it had a movie, and it was going to have what I was working on, which I'm still not going to reveal to you in case somehow, for some reason, it ever comes to fruition. But the reason why I don't plan on doing it anymore, really, is because I kind of had this realization recently, that especially when it comes to the Infinity Bit stuff, I think the best word to put it is trapped. Here's the thing about Infinity Bit. I think that it had so much potential. I think that the characters, by the time they were defined, at least in my head, could really play off each other with some good chemistry, and I think that the world it created could have been expanded. It could have been something really good. But the thing is, recently, and this is kind of when I had this realization, I had a friend over to watch the first season of Infinity Bit, because I was going to introduce them to Infinity Bit so that when I made my new thing, then they could see it. And for the first time ever, I just watched season 1 with the person, and I just realized it was so much worse than I remembered it. I remembered season 1 as being kind of cringy and really weak at places, with a very terrible pilot, but not the whole thing being terrible. And then I rewatched it again, and I swear by the time I skimmed through everything that I did, there was barely any substance left. We literally even just skipped one of the whole episodes. Infinity Bit was the first thing I ever did that was anything like itself. To put that into English, it was the first time that I actually tried making some sort of series or movie or what have you with multiple characters and a general story. Technically, I had made a few movies before then, 2 to be exact. One of them was barely that, and the other was much more of an actual film. I've privated it a long time ago, but it was the one that I did with the person who still isn't okay with me saying their name on my channel, so I will call them Sketch, even though it has been a good few years since they've actually used that username. Basically, that was the first actual feature-length movie I made, and it was pretty bad. But the thing is, Infinity Bit, it was really the first time that I really got into doing something like it, it didn't really have to do with my YouTube channel, because the other movies were basically a glorified advertisement for my videos on my YouTube channel, and this was going to be an actual product in and of itself, and it was going to be a series or a show, because I wanted to try and actually get into filmmaking, since I had just figured out how to actually chroma key with a green screen when I was using a computer instead of a cell phone. And, you know, I was just excited that I could finally actually make movies, and I just wanted to jump right into it. And here's the thing, there's a first for everything. Infinity Bit was very much a first, and in the end, it definitely kind of did its job as to kickstarting the kind of understanding, I guess, I have now of filmmaking. However, one of the key factors to Infinity Bit's downfall is just the unfortunate circumstance that it was the first thing that I made like it. I had no experience, I had no understanding as to what would actually make it good. I was a lot less mature, and I didn't, I made a lot of excuses for things. Like, it was just a lot of the time, especially with season one, there is just so much filler, just complete filler, and it was the worst. But at the time, I just thought that was fine. I didn't even come up with an excuse, even. I was just like, oh, there's filler, but everyone does filler, and that makes it okay. Uh, and on top of that, there was just so much more stuff that just kind of killed it. Like, the fact that the comedy was done all wrong, this because the comedy really should be based on the characters, and with the cast of characters I have in Infinity Bit, that should be a fairly easy task. But instead, the comedy was all over the place. A good amount of the dialogue felt very stilted and fake, and a lot of the another good portion of the dialogue was you couldn't even really tell if it was supposed to be a joke or not, and sometimes it was just the most awkward, try hard, like, bad dialogue, or there would be a reference that has nothing to do with anything. Like, I swear, at one point in episode 3, they randomly start saying things. It's painful to say, but, like, Formula says something about, oh, or Pill says, oh, Formula, you like Spider-Man 3 or something. It's, like, completely out of nowhere, and it really just throws you off because it has nothing to do with anything. And there's also just such an abundance in Infinity Bit in general of, haha, we're so self-aware humor, that just completely defeats its own point, if you know what I mean. You understand what I mean by that, right? Like, oh, look, we're so self-aware, and that makes everything okay, and we're acknowledging it, but really it's not. Like, I haven't watched season 2 in a while. Again, I actually remember season 2 as being my favorite part of it. Uh, Although now it's probably the movie. To talk about the movie a bit, the movie, I think, is probably the only thing that's held up decently. And I've seen the movie fairly recently enough, and all things considered, I think it actually is okay. Here's the thing, it's not great. It's definitely not high art. There's a lot of sections in there that just suck, and there's a good amount in there that feels kind of like wasted potential. But there are also some parts in there that just show that I am actually capable of being fairly competent as a filmmaker. The problem is that a lot of those parts are buried by all the other garbage. Uh, and there's still that classic, really awkward, poorly written, sometimes out of nowhere dialogue. Uh, like, haha, we're so quirky, we're so funny. The only time that ever worked in the entire series was with Carl. I still stand by that Carl is the best character in the whole series. But, and that's the thing, that's also why it's so sad to me that I don't really want to do it anymore, is just because, there's so many good... Anyways, I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Also in the movie, near the end, not the terribly, terribly edited scene that I should not have released the way it was with the fight. But the part where Pill and Formula are talking in the kitchen, to be honest, the dialogue is really not well written there, but the actual performance in that scene that I was giving, while again it's not great, it's probably the best I've done, at least this far, and I mean, at least considering that I was about 13 at the time, it was convincing enough, I guess. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is, this series had a lot of potential to go places. This story concept was pretty decent. They live in a digital world where there's infinite, unlimited resources, and it's all in a computer, and you can just make things appear. Like, that's a pretty cool idea. In fact, with a high budget, that could actually look really awesome. And the characters were, at least by the end of the whole thing in my head, the characters actually had personalities and were defined. Because that's another problem, is when it started, especially in the god-awful pilot, the characters were just complete carbon copies of each other. And they were very... Here's the thing about the characters in Infinity Bit. The key word is inconsistency. Even though, and to this day in my head, I could actually write out, what the characters were like and what each character would do in each situation, the problem was that sometimes they would do something out of character if it was convenient for the plot, and that is something that should never, ever, ever be done. In fact, it should be the complete other opposite way around. The story should be in service of the characters, not the characters in service of the story. And one of the key examples as to why that is the fact that since I did do that as often as I did, where they would just break character to make it easier to write out the actual story, then they kind of didn't feel like developed characters. Even though in a sense they were, then they broke character so often that they felt inconsistent and you couldn't keep track of which character had which character traits, and it just kind of became a mess. And, when one of the most consistent and enjoyable characters in your series is the one that's supposed to be comic relief, you probably have a problem. I'm referring to Carl, by the way. So, I spent about 6 months working on what I was for Infinity Bit, and I was even going to do another thing that was a series for Infinity Bit after that, and a whole bunch of things. And you know what? The thing is, they were actually turning out really good. To be honest, after watching Season 1 and realizing just how terrible it is, I can honestly say, without a tinted, egotistical lens, that I think where the things that I was working on were going, they would have been unironically decent, and it would have actually been something I could be proud of, and it would have been probably the best filmmaking work I've done in my life. But here's the thing, is that it would kind of feel like a waste of time to me. And I guess to try and explain why that is, the thing is that with Infinity Bit, it just had such a rough start. The pilot is terrible. The entire first season is terrible. Even the best things that are a part of the series, like the movie, aren't really good enough that I can say that they are good. I have to say they're halfway decent. And, they have rough patches. And that's a problem. If something isn't the best that it can be, then, well, you've kind of failed. And as much as I'd love to redeem it and be able to make more things with it, because I have so many more stories to tell with the universe and the characters of Infinity Bit, like the ones that I have finished writing. The thing is, it would be buried under a cavalcade of garbage. And that's the thing, is that even if somebody decides that they're gonna give Infinity Bit a try, then if they give it 8 episodes to prove itself, in other words, the entire first season, then just imagine, not only would it completely screw up the first impression with the pilot, but it would take it till episode 7 to do something even remotely somewhat decent, and then it would screw it up again in the 8th episode. And it would just, like, if you see a show and it does that, are you gonna watch season 2, and then the movie, and then season 3, and then the whatever comes after season 3, when it finally starts getting good? Or are you gonna say you had your chance to prove yourself, and you blew it? First impressions are very key, and first impressions are probably the weakest point of Infinity Bit. The entire first season is just a god awful insult to filmmaking. The first episode is a god awful insult to the entire series, and even the order of how things go is kind of confusing. It goes from season 1 to the movie to season 2 to season 3, and most people are probably just going to go from season 1 episode 8 to season 2 episode 1, and then there's this little thing that says previously blah blah blah. If it said previously in the movie, that would have made so much more sense, because people would be like, oh, okay, so I have to go watch the movie instead. But for some reason I wrote out just previously, and then there's a bunch of stuff that probably no one recognizes. And so even if I made the thing that I was working on and it turned out exactly how I envisioned it, and it was perfect in just about every way, the thing is, it would feel kind of like a waste of effort, because, yeah, one or two of the people who somehow managed to tolerate the entire rest of the series because they're my close personal friends, and they probably don't want to hurt my feelings, would watch it and really enjoy it, then pretty much no one else would. And the thing about Infinity Bit is it already barely has a viewer base outside of my friends who I bribe to watch it. And on top of, it's just so hard to get a viewer base for it in general. Imagine trying to get a viewer base for it where they give it a try, and then even then, they're just spoon-fed like an entire season of garbage. I think you understand what I'm getting at, right? It, I, I don't want to put all of this effort and time and work and passion into a good product if you have to consume about 20 bad products to understand the good product. It feels like a complete waste of resources, of time, of everything to keep adding and adding to this thing. Even if you're adding good things, then so many bad things came before it, and so many mandatory bad things, that it just becomes a mess. It's all over the place, and you can't understand it, and it's kind of like this rant that I'm going on right now. You know? And so, as much as it feels bad, because I made so much for what I was working on, and I'm gonna probably borrow a good amount of the soundtrack from what I was working on for this new product, or project, then there's still some stuff that was very specific to the Infinity Bit thing that's going to be left behind, and there's just, it would have been something really good. And that's why it hurts so much that I don't want to do it, because I don't want to do it if it feels pointless, because I just explained why it was pointless for the past 18 minutes. I'm not going to say it again. But by the same token, completely disregarding all of this stuff that I did and that I wrote that would have actually made a decent product just kind of hurts. It's like you put all of this effort into making something and it turns out the way that it should, but then you can't use it. But I'm basically completely abandoning that project, and I know that I'm going to continuously say I might eventually do it, but I kind of know, even I kind of know inside that that's not true. Here's the thing, I wanna actually make something that showcases that I am in fact capable of creating a coherent, decent film where you don't have to watch 5 hours of garbage first to understand whatever's going on in it. And So I'm just gonna be pretty transparent about this. I am making a movie. I am making a movie right now, and it's going to have nothing to do with Infinity Bit. It is a complete blank slate. It's going to have characters that have never been seen. It's going to have a movie that is not, it's going to have it's going to have a story that is not derivative of anything I've done in the past. It is going to be completely standalone on its own, as in, you can just watch this and not have to worry about watching anything beforehand. So you don't have to be like, oh, well, this is like part of a series and you have to watch season 1 first. But season 1, episode 1 is really bad and season 1 is bad. But don't worry, it'll get better and all this crap. I don't have to show this to my friends and say, oh, this is a part of a thing. It's really good, but the rest of the thing is really bad. But you should watch it anyway. No, I can just send them the damn movie and they can watch it. How nice would that be? It's just, and it's the way it probably should have been from the beginning, but since somehow fate decided that the good ideas should be the ones that I inevitably screw up because it's my first time doing it, then I have to completely start over. But that's the thing, is that honestly it's gonna be nice to just have it be, and it'll be so much more simple to just be able to have it as its own thing. And I would like to keep making movies, and maybe eventually, if somehow I can come up with yet another story that would work with this, then I might even make another series. And this time, from Infinity Bit, I will have experience and knowledge and some sense of how to actually do anything I want to do and execute it properly and not just throw a bunch of garbage at the wall and see what sticks. I can actually just have something that is coherent and comprehensible and not trash. And the thing is, Infinity Bit kind of served its purpose as far as being something to give me experience. And even though that probably sounds bad, because this whole time I've basically just been trash-talking it and talking about how bad it is, and you're probably thinking, how can you say it gave you experience? If this is your experience, then that's not a good look. It gave me experience in the sense that now I'm able to point at it and say, that's bad, that should be done this way. You know what I mean? It gave me a sense of how these things actually work when you carry them out, and that it's not just walk in front of a green screen and do a whole bunch of improv for 10 minutes and then try and edit it into a coherent story. And that's good, because now I can actually do something that will be decent enough that I'll want to show it to my friends and, people to represent that I can actually do these things, and I won't have a slight amount of embarrassment for a large portion of it. Because when I show people Infinity Bit, I don't show it to them with a huge amount of pride. I say, I'm proud of part of this. I say, it's gotten to the point where for most of the time now, I kind of don't want people to watch it. In fact, after rewatching season 1, if anything, I kind of wanted to private them. And I feel like it's a little too soon. And I'm not gonna do that. But I just want to start something new where I can actually have a decent sense of pride for my own work. And that should probably be every artist's goal, You don't want to make something that you're not proud of. If you're not proud of what you're making, you shouldn't be making it. And that's why I'm not going to make Infinity Bit anymore. And I can't say that I think the entire series as a whole, every single second of it, is garbage. But, it's kind of like with every instance. Just because there's some good stuff in there doesn't mean that it automatically outweighs the bad stuff. And depending on how bad the bad stuff is, even if there's more good stuff, the bad stuff might still outweigh it. You could have an entire series that's completely golden, but if you screw up the finale and you've been building up to it the whole time, then guess what? You kinda destroyed the whole thing. And that would be such a damn shame, now wouldn't it? And it's gonna be so great. Sorry that I keep repeating myself and acting like a broken record, but as you can probably tell, I'm not the best wordsmith on the planet. Uh, it'll be so just wonderful to be able to have this thing that I can show that showcases that I'm able to film make, uh, and not have to disclaim anything, and not have to say a bunch of extra fine print stuff like how bad certain parts of it is. I don't even have to say anything. I could walk up to someone, hand them the DVD, and that would be all that needs to happen. There's no needed exposition as to, you know, what it is and why it is the way it is and everything. Just it's completely on its own, and I can do that a bunch of times because it's not like I'm saying this is going to be the be all end all of my entire filmmaking career. As much as this is probably going to represent my filmmaking capabilities, and that's what I'm going for, and I'm trying to make it the best it can, then really this is also a kickstart, much like Infinity, but the difference is that instead of being the kickstart of me making movies, it's hopefully going to be the kickstart of me making good movies. And I can still make plenty of movies after that, at least hopefully, if it goes well, and they can be just as good. And then I can actually have any amount of self-respect for my own art. Sorry for this video being about 24 minutes longer than it needed to be, but as I said a few seconds ago, I'm not very good at speaking, which is why I'm still completely mystified as to why I am the loudmouth that I am. If you watched this far, thank you. I do appreciate it, mostly because this is really important stuff that I've been meaning to get off my chest for a very, very long time. Oh, I should probably mention, I'm actually going to have other actors in this movie. That was going to be kind of the case with the Infinity Bit thing, too. And I say kind of because, I mean, literally there was going to be one new actor, and they would have played one new character. So, but this is going to actually have a cast. You know, when I roll the credits, I'm not going to have to type Jamie Wilshire about 50 times. And I'm not even going to play more than one character. I will be one character, and everyone else will be one character, and you won't have to think, hey, why does that man look like that man also? I just wanted to mention that very briefly, and I guess shoehorn it in at the end, because I forgot to say it somewhere in the middle there. And now this video is 28 minutes instead of 26, and by the time I say another outro, it'll probably be 30. So, yeah, thanks for watching this video that is 28 minutes longer than it needed to sorry, 28 minutes longer than it needed to be by the time it's 30 minutes. I'm not gonna say I hope you enjoyed it, blah blah blah, because it's really not like a content video. It's just me explaining things. So I guess if you like the sound of my voice, it's your lucky day, but don't see how that could be a possibility. My voice is pretty annoying. And please do look out for this new movie I'm making, because I think it's, you know, even though I've barely done anything with it yet, I only literally just finally came up with a plot for it earlier today. Up until this point, I've just known I was starting over. I didn't know what the start over was going to be. And I haven't even written a page of the script yet, so I can't say yet how proud of it I am and how proud I am of how it's turning out. But after how far I got progress-wise on the Infinity Bit thing, and how proud I was of how that was turning out, to be honest, I have a healthy amount of confidence that this is going to be something that I can actually brag about. So, look out for it. It's probably not going to come out before 2020. let me rephrase that. It is absolutely not going to come out before 2020. Also, prepare for a video near New Year's where I talk for a long time about how sad I am that the 2010s are going to be over. And I guess the note I want to end on is time is moving extremely fast, and that should terrify you. Goodbye.